Hi, and welcome to, or back to, my channel. I'm Kit, and here we talk about the harmful beliefs and ideas that come from religion, red pill, and so on. And today we're going to discuss, Brittany Sellner, of All the People, has possibly discovered why women are unhappy these days. Curious? Me too. Brittany Sellner, formerly Pettibone, has had quite a career. She was such a busy alt-right activist that a study was published about her tactics, and now she's married to far-right political activist Martin Sellner. They have a son together, and I assume that's why she keeps a lower profile these days. She seems most active on YouTube, where she posts a video about once a month. This one caught my eye, and I'm sure you can guess why. For my listeners, the title is Maybe This Is Why Women Today Are Unhappy, and the thumbnail is of Brittany looking oddly smug and a woman leaning against a wall with the text, "Why so unhappy?" And I have to say, I never trust this. Alt-right, far-right, just plain right-wing, these folks are the first ones to say that happiness isn't owed. If you're not happy, work harder. In short, happiness is the last thing on their list. They don't even care if people have the basic necessities for life. So yeah, I'm going into this really skeptical that it will be a good faith discussion and not another,
maybe women's rights wasn't a good idea.
Anyway, let's get into it. And before we do that, I would like to note that I don't know Brittany, and these are my thoughts and opinions. That being said, thank you for joining me, and I would like to give extra thanks to my patrons. I decided to check out Brittany's sources, and Brittany's video was published in May 2023. One source is from CBS, Antidepressant Use in U.S. Soars by 65% in 15 Years, published in August 2017. And her other source is from a channel called Philosophy Insights, which published Camille Paglia, What Went Wrong with Feminism in June 2019. However, the description credits this 14-minute segment to Ed Mays, which published Camille Paglia, Free Women, Free Men in March 2017. I'm a little confused as to why she's using sources that are 6 years old, but maybe this won't lead to where I expect. Hope springs eternal. Brittany opens her video by saying she's using a clip from someone much more intelligent than herself to frame her premise.
And the lady in question is the feminist intellectual Camille Paglia, who I'm sure many of you are already familiar with because she's very well known.
I find it interesting that the article Brittany shows is from 2018. Anyway, Brittany assures us that she wouldn't say they're in the same ideological village, but Paglia is worth listening to because she provides a lot of incredibly astute insights, and Brittany is going to use a clip of Paglia explaining why she thinks women are unhappier nowadays than they were in the past. Brittany tells us she doesn't think this is just Paglia's opinion, there's a lot of data to back this up, and she shows her CBS article when talking about the number of women sadly on antidepressants.
I've heard people say a number of things for why they believe that women are unhappier nowadays than they were in the past. And this ranges from due to the prevalence of hookup culture, it leaves women feeling empty and disrespected, or women waiting too long to get married or start a family, things like that. Camille Paglia's insight is much more unapparent and profound, I would say, than these reasons, although I do think that they play a role. There are a myriad of things, many that I didn't mention as well.
We don't have to guess, though. The article tells us that antidepressant use is up for everyone in the US, not just women. And it also gives reasons for why more women than men may be on medication. There's still more of a stigma for men seeking mental health treatment, and the sexual side effects of medication may be more upsetting to men than women, leading to men being more unwilling to take the medication. But let's hear what conclusions Paglia comes to.
Now, I notice, wherever I go in the world, actually, that upper middle class career women are very unhappy. They're very unhappy, okay, even though they have achieved a certain status. What I'm saying is that feminists have to stop blaming men for their own unhappiness. The unhappiness is due, I believe, to huge systemic changes that women, for thousands of years, women had their own world. There was the world of women, and there was the world of men. And the sexes didn't have that much to do with each other, okay? This is a brand new experiment to have this new system where now women can be economically independent now. They're no longer dependent on a father or husband or brother, okay, for their sustenance, right? And they're working side by side with men in the workplace, right? This is an experiment. It's never happened before, right? I was saying in the book that we may have to accept a certain amount of tension between the sexes in the workplace. Right? The feminist idea that if we can just suppress men enough, women will be happy. I say no, okay? I say, okay, and it's on the basis of my own experience as a child in Italian-American immigrant community, okay, is that what women have lost is the old solidarity that they once had when they totally ruled the private sphere. The women's life all day long was with other women once, multi-generational, older women, okay, as well as the children, all right? It was a huge tribal experience. And now what women are feeling is a sense of isolation and loneliness, disconnection, okay, from their old function. I'm not saying to go back. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying stop blaming men.
So first, I'm supposed to believe that Paglia is a feminist intellectual when she thinks feminism is about suppressing men? Second, are we supposed to believe that women are repeatedly acting against their own best interests for no good reason? Third, what happened to that private sphere that women were in charge of? And fourth, men and women have been working alongside each other for a long time. I would say the thing that's changed the most is the work we do. So I have to admit, I'm not very impressed, but Brittany finds Paglia's reasoning incredibly shrewd. But she disagrees that it's only older, single career women that are unhappy.
Women, I really think, inherently need community with other women. And since we don't really have it in the organic way that we used to, because society is just so individualistic and atomized, we're basically gravitating towards any reason, any excuse at all to find community with one another. And this honestly could be the reason why feminism has been so successful. These women craved female companionship and female solidarity, and of course they also believed that they were fighting for an important cause. However, many women eventually saw through the smoke and mirrors, realized feminism was a big fat lie, and jumped ship.
Citation needed, and I would like to add that Mrs. Midwest recommends Brittany's channel.
Not only is it a lie though, because for the gazillionth time, men and women already have equality, at least in the Western world, it's also become so insufferably intersectional.
And here we have the reason Mrs. Midwest recommends her. The white nationalism is one thing, but convincing women that feminism isn't needed is another. Two ideologies with one click. Brilliant. I must say though, the idea that intersectionality is insufferable is a new one.
That is just a bunch of women fighting amongst each other about who is more victimized and oppressed, and who is honestly surprised that this is not appealing to the average woman.
Perhaps Brittany should update her sources. A Pew Research poll from 2020 shows that 61% of American women see themselves as feminists, 68% of those aged 18 to 29. It's really interesting now that I'm thinking about what triggered the second wave of feminism and how these folks would likely rationalize it. They really never think of women as having any agency. Anything women do is because someone else compelled them to do it, even if against their own self-interest. Interesting. And a bit disheartening, but my expectations weren't too high to begin with.
Worse, feminism pretends to care about women while simultaneously giving them the worst advice on the entire planet, such as,
"This is gonna be good.
Sleep with 50,000 men," or "Don't get married, don't have kids, be hateful and denigrating towards men," and so on and so forth.
So let me get this straight. Feminism tells women to be hateful and denigrating toward men, and also to sleep with 50,000 of them? I love how she says, "and so on and so forth," as if what she just said was logical.
So for the women who do wake up and eventually leave feminism, I think some of them are left with a kind of negative impression of other women, because of course it was in this female-dominated atmosphere that they received such bad advice and had such bad experiences.
It's interesting. These folks seem to equate feminism with a lifestyle or a religion, but no. Feminism can inform your choices, but it can't make them for you. It's also not really something you have to leave. You can participate or not. You can agree with the core tenets or not. There's no dues to pay, no forms to fill out. Anyway, Brittany tells us that, from what she's seen, so many former feminists are overly harsh to women, and she suspects that's due to their experiences with feminists. And that brings us to the term pick me, and we're just all over the place in this video, aren't we? Brittany isn't fond of the term because it's often used as an insult and used way too liberally, which I agree. However,
as I said, unfortunately, I think a small amount of these women do exist because I have personally seen a growing movement of them on the internet. These are the types of women who spend their days calling other women disloyal, untrustworthy, gold diggers, Oh, and my personal favorite, that women nowadays, they're unable to love. I mean, you might as well just call women evil, get straight to the point, and use beating around the bush here.
Brittany characterizes these women as not like other girls and says she's not saying they're evil or anything like that, and they probably don't even realize how unkind they're being, which I side-eye, but moving on. Brittany says she's guilty of going down the rabbit hole and being too judgmental of other women, and she was just comparing the two sides for the sake of this video. I'm not really sure why, but okay.
I really don't think that either of these extremes, either the feminists or the pick-me's.
Is she saying the not like other girls crowd are feminists? There is no part of feminism that involves denigrating people regardless of their sex or yours, and honestly, pick me and not like other girls aren't communities that people join or beliefs. It's a certain type of behavior that some people engage in and that most, thankfully, grow out of. Anyway, Brittany says she thinks neither extreme is good because they turn women away from one another.
Sadly, I think there have been a lot of negatives as a result of women losing this community with one another. For example, I think it's probably potentially a reason why a lot less women are interested in having children. And why is this? Because raising children requires a community. Of course, many women have husbands, but husbands, they can't be home all day doing 50-50. They're usually out working. And so this can very often lead to women becoming isolated, overwhelmed, and even depressed.
For anyone wondering, Brittany did put a note on the screen that she understood mothers often have to work as well. And though I do think community is important, when it comes to having kids, I would think finances play a larger role in that decision. But we're not going to talk about that. Instead,
furthermore, you also don't have the benefit of being around people who are similar to you. Because men and women, we are obviously very, very different. I don't think I need to tell you that, but I mean, maybe for some people, it's not just our genitals. We have different strengths and weaknesses. We are capable of totally different things. We think totally different.
There are some things women have to think of that men don't, and some things men have to think of that women don't, but that's not because of some inherent sex difference, but due to society. I've had friends of both sexes and we're all different. None of my male friends have been the same and none of my female friends have been the same. And I am so tired of these attempts to tell us that men and women are just so different. And yet we're supposed to marry one another and live together for our entire lives? Come on.
So being around women, it can be a wonderful thing because there's a sense of familiarity, stableness, safety, because we are similar. We are like one another.
I'm sure no one watching this will be shocked if I say women can have similarities with men too. And I'm just going to go ahead and add that having friends in general is good. And in my opinion, it's important not to limit your friends to people who are like you. Anyway, Brittany tells us how much she appreciates her female friends, and when she first began doing politics, she began feeling lonely and even a bit depressed because most of her friends weren't political and her audience was mostly male. And a look at her comments proves that to still be true. But then she met and befriended some women and it was all copacetic after that. She adds that it's great for men and women to have spaces away from each other, and she thinks it would be great if we could get back to this organic way of spending time with other women.
I am aware that spaces like this do exist in our society right now, particularly female-only spaces, but these kind of spaces have gotten a very bad reputation because they're very often created by very avid radical feminists, so they're just not appealing to the average woman.
Does anyone know what women-only spaces very avid radical feminists have created that aren't appealing to the average woman? Do you ever get the feeling these folks are making things up?
And then when men try to create these spaces, they're labeled sexist and they're basically burned to the ground.
I'm sorry to burst Brittany's bubble, but men's spaces do exist. Please see the description box. And I love how Brittany just said we need separate spaces for men and women, and they exist, but they're not good enough. And does she propose any solutions, have any ideas, anything? Nope.
The point of this video is basically just to highlight something very important that I think we've lost, and that is to have a community of women who are helping each other through life. Enough of this hating on one another or creating these deceitful, harmful movements to bring us together, for this artificial cause that's just a big lie in the end.
She's just here to tell us what we do and don't need, and when we do try to fill a need, well, it's not the right way, which is not terribly helpful. Brittany goes on to say that we shouldn't need an ideological cause to bring us together, and research indicates that women with strong female friendships are happier and healthier overall. She concludes by telling us that a lot of women are amazing, and she thinks it would be a shame if we missed out on the wonderful friendships we can have with one another. And that was it. Did anyone else notice how the video starts off strong with Paglia's talk and feminism bad, and then kind of tapers off into a lukewarm women should have female friends? I'm pleasantly surprised that the conclusion wasn't women need to get married and have babies, but I'm baffled by how this turned into a feminism bad thing. Honestly, this reminds me of brainwashing. You just keep repeating the same thing over and over until it sticks, even if it doesn't make sense. No matter how much of a reach it might be, just find a way to work it into the conversation until people come to understand that whatever the thing you don't like is, it's the reason for all these problems. This is essentially training people to view feminism as the cause of all problems, even unrelated things. But you know, it's a whole lot easier to be an anti-feminist on YouTube than to be a white nationalist. And that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.